So, hi, Kevin. Are you still involved with Jakarta EE and MicroProfile?
I am. I'm probably a little more involved with the Jakarta EE side, but I'm still involved with both projects.
But are you completely involved with Jakarta and MicroProfile, or do you have other responsibilities as well?
There's a few other little minor things around IBM, but from an open source perspective, yes, it's those two projects.
Okay. And you are now more involved with Jakarta EE? It was always the case, or just now?
Well, no. Since Jakarta EE kicked off, then I have been, quite a bit involved with that. I'm a member of the platform project, the PMC, the steering committee I participate on, and the spec committee I participate on. So it's just that, when we first started off, there's a lot of startup activities that have to happen, and it's not taking up as much of your time. Well, now, we did Jakarta EE 8, and now we're trying to get Jakarta EE 9 out, and I'm also, the co-release lead for Jakarta EE 9. Yeah, then that activity, it's take up more and more of my time. And then I've had to kind of pass off some of the work activities to John Klingen with the MicroProfile stuff. We're both the co-leads on MicroProfile, but he's been kind of picking up the slack a little bit. So
okay,
it works out well.
And is it your choice to work on Jakarta EE, or you got an assignment from IBM? So how it works exactly? So
it's both.
Okay.
I mean, because I do have an interest in Jakarta EE, and because IBM needs some representation on Jakarta EE, then it's kind of a natural fit.
And IBM needs representation because of open liberty and website liberty. So this is the primary reason, or?
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. I mean, we've been involved with Java EE since day one. We've our application servers, whether you're talking traditional WebSphere Liberty, Open Liberty, I mean, the support of that Java EE, Jakarta EE programming model, that's very important to our customers and, to the WebSphere business.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's in our best interest to continue to participate in that project.
Yeah, but Oracle was also, a Java EE shop, and in one point of time, seems to me like all developers were on vacations for 2 years or something like this, right? Okay. Now,
but they are, in a way, I would kind of agree with that because the whole Java EE kind of went on vacation for a while.
Yeah.
But from a Jakarta EE perspective, they have been very much involved. I mean,
no kidding.
They're definitely not trying to lead it, and that's good. But they are still very much involved, with individual components and the TCK project, and helping us out with knowing, they ran Java EE for many, many, many years, and so getting that education and that background to help us with Jakarta EE, it's been very beneficial.
Yeah, no kidding. In the mailing list, we see lots of contribution from Oracle. Not to forget, there are prior Sun guys usually, right?
Yes.
so there's still the old Sun J2E love, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, but and what I really like is that the Oracle contribution, at least what I see on the mailing list, was always productive.
Yes.
Very productive and very precise. This is what I saw now. This is like
yeah.
productive. Yep. Yeah. So what's your opinion on MicroProfile and Jakarta EE separation? So the question is whether you can have an opinion, but I mean, let's probably, So this is just a private talk. So if you could do
real private.
Yeah. You could do whatever you like. What you would do? Let's forget, Jakarta EE and MicroProfile. Just brainstorming, because I have what's interesting is what I really understood right now. I have complete different perspective from most of the people on the mailing list, because if you are building a server, you have complete different concerns and even interests than someone who is using the server. And I had a chat with not at IBM, I forgot his name, Naughty? not
Yeah, Alistair.
yeah,
that in
Alistair,
him?
exactly. And we had already a heating conversation on the mailing list about modules and Maven and how it should work. And I said after conversation with me, he changed some things because he understood that the project view is a little bit different, you know. And so this is why I'm interested on your thoughts. And so what's your opinion on the whole Jakarta EE and MicroProfile? So then you can get my opinion, but I'm interested to know about yours.
Okay. So my take is that for now, I think they still need to be separate efforts. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because Jakarta EE is still relatively new.
Okay.
We did do Jakarta EE 8 last fall. Mm-hmm. We are trying to get Jakarta EE 9 ready for this fall. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's about a year's time frame to do another release, when in actuality, we aren't changing much at all. It's just a change to the new namespace, mm-hmm. but feature-wise, it's nothing new. Mm-hmm. So we really haven't proven any type of a quicker life cycle mm-hmm. for Jakarta EE. We haven't been able to get specs out any quicker yet, or any new implementations, any new releases any quicker. So if you want to innovate in this space, right now we have MicroProfile that would mm-hmm. allow you to innovate at a faster pace. Mm-hmm. And so for now, I still see that both efforts are required. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe down the road, if we can get Jakarta EE at a faster clip, and whether, it doesn't even have to be the platform, but after we get Jakarta namespace in place, and we can start to show that we can do individual specs at a faster pace, well, then maybe that would show that, okay, this environment does work for an innovative area for the programming model. And so then maybe MicroProfile, either parts of it or all of it, maybe it could move over to mm-hmm. Jakarta EE. But right now, I still see that the two of them are required. So that's my viewpoint.
Yeah.
What about yours?
Before you get mine, you mentioned several times about we trying to release Jakarta EE. What's the problem, or what's the challenges? Because it seems to me like you intended to have faster releases, and somehow they are still too slow for your expectations. So what's the problem?
No, we just haven't been able to prove anything with a faster life cycle yet, or a faster release cycle. So, I mean, okay, one thing, if we get Jakarta EE 9 out in the fall, mm-hmm. so far it's looking okay, so if we get it out in the fall, we're looking at a major Jakarta release in 1 year. Mm-hmm. That's already so much better than Java EE.
Yeah.
Because Java EE would take 3-4 years between each of the major releases. Mm-hmm. So that's already showing a lot of progress. Now, after we do Jakarta EE 9, we have to decide, okay, are we going to do Jakarta EE 10, and what's the direction for that, and mm-hmm. what type of changes are going to be coming? We've already got a couple of new spec projects. One of them is MVC, mm-hmm. And it's one that Ivar had started with the JCP and now has moved over to Jakarta EE, mm-hmm. and the other one is NoSQL. Mm-hmm. So if we can start to get those, getting more solid and maybe building in or integrating with the platform, then that's showing some of that innovation. Mm-hmm. And so then maybe we can have, more innovative, quicker release cycles and on a regular basis.
But so I think this will work.
We just don't have any proof yet.
But this would work because MVC, it was several years ago in good shape. As I remember, there was still... How was the name of the guy? There was Ivar and the other guy, from Oracle.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know it's Ivar, and I don't remember
the other guy. He was very active in the community with web, and he was also one of the contributors at Oracle time or even Sun time at the MVC project. So it was in good shape. And for me, it is like no magic. It should actually work. It's like, and the same is true for NoSQL. It's a different story. It's like young project. from Brazil, I think, right? The leads are
Yes.
from Brazil, and they are really nice, and this would just work. Why it shouldn't? I mean, but I think, okay, this MVC is a little bit boring because old, and NoSQL is actually also very, very old API. I remember this was an Oracle Java 1 5 years ago. It was proposed at the Java 1 in Moscone, or even earlier. So what do you see other specs around? Do you can imagine something which could enrich Jakarta EE? Any ideas? Because my problem with Jakarta EE is Jakarta is very good. It's more like iPhone, you know. What do you expect of the next iPhone? So, you know, whether I have 4 cameras or 7, I mean, in one point of time with 20 cameras, it doesn't get any better. I mean, for me, it's this Jakarta EE, and it happened at the Jakarta E6 time frame already. So therefore, I was never that excited about 7 and 8. It was a small improvements for me projects, but not like, you know, I could tell my client, come, we migrate to Jakarta EE and you will save, you know, I don't know what. It was just small iterative improvements. So my point is, it is pretty complete, in the faster cycles could be interesting, but it's really what we can do, right? Fibers could change something probably, you know, the innovation could come from JDK. So we could get, for instance, GPU integration or something like this. But from the enterprise perspective, I would say we are pretty complete, right? But it's the interesting thing, you know?
Probably.
You have the Apple problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's some, well, the term is nose cone polishing. You know, there's some items there related to, you know, just polishing the cone of some of the specs. This may not be consistent with all the people at MicroProfile, but one of the items is config. And you know, the MicroProfile config, it was proposed to the JCP couple years ago. I mean, we aren't that old with MicroProfile, so a couple years ago. But then this whole thing happened with Jakarta EE, so it was kind of pulled off that back burner. Well, NoSQL is one of the areas that really wants to take advantage of MicroProfile config. So would it make sense for MicroProfile config to move over to Jakarta EE, or should it just continue to evolve with MicroProfile and allow the usage between the two?
Or NoSQL could be a part of MicroProfile for pragmatic reasons in one.
It could, but they've already kind of, you know, went the Jakarta EE path. I know we talked with him, you know, Roberto, I think, right? And so we kind of explained the advantages of both environments, and he decided to go with Jakarta EE.
Yes, but we are in agile environment, you know. You say, okay, we decided Jakarta EE, now he can... No, I mean, no kidding. I would see this not as stringent. It should be more fun.
Yeah.
I know. He decided for Jakarta EE, and now MicroProfile config is somewhere else. You say, okay, then sorry, I go to MicroProfile for now, and then we switch back, and discussion is over, you know. We are not like in, you know, some committee in an ivory tower, you know. It should be more agile a bit.
It should be. The problem that we have right now is the specifications and the process that we have defined at the Eclipse Foundation. Right now, only Jakarta EE has a working group that is following that specification process.
Yeah.
MicroProfile isn't there yet. That's one of the work items that we're doing. We're trying to figure out how do we either create a, you know, like a separate working group for MicroProfile so that then we can take advantage of the specification process. And then once we start creating specifications there, then we get to your idea that's like, well, then who cares where it lives? Just, you know, you can use it. You know, you could develop it over here in MicroProfile. Jakarta EE could use it, or vice versa. Yeah. So
I had already a conversation with John Klingen about that. And my observation was just that the MicroProfile innovation doesn't come from Java. It comes from somewhere else, so usually from clouds. If you observe, most of the APIs from MicroProfile are not like optimized or improved Jakarta EE APIs. It's something completely new, mostly driven, you know, by outside forces, external forces like Prometheus, Matrix, OpenTelemetry is the most problematic one probably. And even the MicroProfile config was dictated a little bit, by Docker environment entries in Kubernetes. So how it works out of the box. And I think we will get more and more APIs in MicroProfile because we get more and more stuff from Kubernetes. We could got even something if this for instance, this Vault takes off HashiCorp, something like this. This could be a spec. GraphQL is the next one. We have, Kafka driven by Kafka. And this is comes from outside, not necessarily. So my impression was Jakarta EE came from the Java ecosystem. So several Java vendors had their products, and this was abstracted to Jakarta EE. And MicroProfile is more like, CNCF and other non-Java community. They have some implementations, and we get a Java implementation. And the release cycles are completely different. Because, if OpenTelemetry changes, we cannot say we release next year, this change right now. So they have to react faster. This is why I ask what's the innovation on Jakarta EE side. And in Java world, you can talk with the WebLogic guys, say, look, what's happening as Tommy, there is already established community, so you can actually think when to release, you have some influence where the new features are going to be released. This is my observation, actually. So
okay. That's a fair observation.
And therefore, I don't get, how this would be ever possible that MicroProfile and Jakarta EE could be merged together. Except there will be lots of profiles, not MicroProfile, right? Jakarta EE with a cloud profile or something like this. And this is not a very good idea from my perspective because it is, how to call it, fragmentation. Fragmentation can happen then.
Well, yeah, it could. We're also getting feedback that even the current separation is fragmenting the community as well. Mm-hmm. So it kind of, it really depends. We get input from a lot of different people, a lot of different viewpoints. And as far as, what is it better to keep separate or is it better to merge them together? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, talking about religion. So it gets kind of tough.
Yeah, but from the what I can tell you from my perspective, sometimes I do workshops and sometimes from projects. If I explain them, look, we take something like OpenLiberty, for instance, right? So OpenLiberty has a dedicated MicroProfile 3 download, which is available right now, but I don't think it was available back then. So what I remember is I had to compose my own feature set, which was crazy. But right now I have one download. It comes with server XML, and this is one feature called MicroProfile 3.3, and I'm set. So they can start with that, and if this is not enough, they can say, okay, we add the Java 8 on top of that. So you get two features in OpenLiberty, and this was every set, yes, okay, we get it. And I say, and if the cloud stuff evolves, then 3 months later, they will upgrade just the MicroProfile feature to 3.4. This is, from my perspective, is perfect. This is like you have like operating system and Docker, two components, but base components, and on Docker you run your system. You can upgrade your operating system, you're updating Docker, and you have both. So, and the other application servers like Payara don't have the problem at all because everything is included. So they get all the feature. Whitefly, for instance, the same, right? So you get everything at once because they don't even attempt to have modules, which is, from my perspective, better experience from user experience because you download one thing which is small, you run it, and here you have it. Quarkus a little bit different, but the benefit is higher because with the native compilation, you save a lot of memory. But they are also very pragmatic. What I saw. So you can have, this is what I like at Quarkus. So they don't care, actually. This would be my opinion, whether it comes from MicroProfile. I think what they do, I have to ask again, the people at Quarkus, they just think, is it useful? And they will do it. For instance, if you download the Hibernate validator from Quarkus, you get bin validation. But they don't even mention bin validation. The feature is named Hibernate validator. I was just curious. I downloaded Hibernate validator, and actually, I saw bin validation was completely hidden. And you can mix and match Jakarta EE and MicroProfile, and no one cares. and they are hugely successful. So, I mean, everyone knows in Germany and Europe, Quarkus. And if I mention Quarkus, we already evaluating. This is like what I can give you the feedback. And so it means, so what's actually is a good idea to think about the user and say, however we name it, if MicroProfile config or the config from MicroProfile is useful, whether it is in Jakarta EE or MicroProfile, I don't think that the end user will care.
Right.
This is just your political internal stuff, how to where it is. And I think,
Yeah, and just to be clear, though, it's not just political because it's legal stuff related to the specifications as well.
For me, political is almost legal, right? Legal and politics is
okay.
They are
that's fair enough.
For me, developer is almost no difference. I'm very afraid of legal. So if I hear legal, it's okay. I have no idea what licensing legal is. A very, very dangerous stuff, right? What's interesting discussion here. So what seems to me, Jakarta is a big open source project, right?
Yes.
We have, if you compare Jakarta EE to a large company, you have the same problem, like huge companies have. Innovation is hard. This is why huge companies, buy smaller companies to innovate, because internal innovation is hard. And this is the same story in you. If you would start, a small open source project, it will always outpace Jakarta EE because they don't have to care about legal politics. They are fresh. They can do whatever they like. If they become successful, then where a problem starts, right?
Yeah. I mean,
this is like...
Even look at MicroProfile.
Yeah.
I mean, when we became successful, that's when some of the issues started, because we're kind of, we've got the growth, we've got multiple people, and then the issue came up, okay, now what about the IP flow through our specifications? Do we have that covered from a legal perspective? And that's where the Eclipse Foundation, the specification process, and the working group, that it kind of comes into play.
Okay.
So, yeah. Soon as he gets successful, then other questions arise.
Why the Jakarta EE people would like to have MicroProfile? So what I read from the mailing list, what is the motivation? Just because of NoSQL, or just because it started in Jakarta EE? Is it like a principle, or why? Because for me, this is like MicroProfile and Jakarta EE. For me, is almost one community. This is mostly the same developers from the same companies. This is like two namespaces or two copies to the same object, two references to the same object. So why they are so passionate about that?
I don't know. You will have to ask them.
Yeah, but via email, mission impossible. So I can invite him to podcast, talk about that. Because via email, you cannot have such discussions via email, because it is almost impossible. There's too much passion. And I really I don't understand that passion of combining them. And like you said, a lot of the same. So the way I started off is I'm very active with Jakarta EE and MicroProfile. Yeah,
it's the same people that are working both projects.
Yeah,
So what difference does it make if they're in multiple projects? I don't know.
What I can imagine is that the MicroProfile people were free, and they innovated fast, and a little bit afraid that the whole specification will slow them down. This could be what I could imagine if I were an passionate MicroProfile contributor, and you will came to me and say, look, we have to have some IP flows or legal stuff. So, okay, this could happen. That they are then a little bit afraid of the whole mechanism.
Wider community. There was some pushback related to that. But after we continued to walk through that and explained what would be the real impact to our day-to-day operation, it got more and more acceptable. So, and as a matter of fact, when we first started to look at this for MicroProfile in the working group, we thought that we would have to define a derivative of the Eclipse Foundation specification process, because we thought, this is too restrictive, too much work. We're going to have to provide a derivative, and cut some of the stuff out. As we kept going through it, we cut it back. And now it's like, nope, the standard Eclipse Foundation specification process will work just fine for MicroProfile. So that's where we're at. So some of it is just, yeah, they're afraid of the unknown. And as we continue to walk through it and work through it, then, it gets a little clearer.
Mm-hmm. Is it planned to have something like, the MicroProfile API? Because right now this is just a BOM, I think. That you have just, just set of interfaces like we had in Jakarta EE.
Right. And you mean to define something at the platform level?
Yes. Umbrella level.
Right now, no.
Why not?
We don't have any definition for that.
Why not?
For no plans.
Because right now, you get you have the BOM and all the APIs are pulled at the BOM level, which if you build this, there's a significant amount of overhead. This is why I'm asking. It's not like it, because there are lots of small classes which have to be downloaded maybe over and over again if you're building on Kubernetes, for instance.
But you can, if you just specify, if you're only interested in config, that would be the only API that is actually brought in.
Yeah, but I'm interested in everything as usual, no? Yeah, because if you think about a project, usually what you will be interested in is typical CDI, JAX-RS, Matrix, MP config, and JSON Web Tokens. Open APIs, almost everything. So sometimes you don't have Jaeger, so you can leave open tracing. But this is the same story like my profiles in Jakarta EE. We always took everything because if you would just leave off some small spec, it didn't matter. So at the end, so the whole idea that one application could just comprise servlet and nothing else, I never saw such a thing. I
don't know. I do know, because I've worked with you for a long time, and with your presentations, I know that that's what you advocate and you present. But then, I know even from an open liberty perspective, we have customers that are saying, no, I only want to bring in the pieces that that my application is going to be using. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to bring in all of Jakarta EE 8. Yeah. I just want to bring in servlets, JSP, and JPA, for example.
And I think it
varies.
Code reviews in such projects usually, and I always ask them why, and they say, okay, we would like to have small footprint or whatever. It's like, have you ever measured the difference and whatever? And after discussion of 2 days, it always dies. So at the end, I think the overhead of running your own unique snowflake and just using stock server with all the dependencies, there are no arguments for it. So this is what I was curious. And if you were Netflix or something like this, it's a completely different story. Or, if you, there was the discussion with John Klingen about the Vodafone case where they had to save, the memory and they run in native mode. So this is, not all my clients are like that. So I'm doing some code review right now for a larger installation, Jakarta EE, Java EE installation. And they have it's a huge project, but they don't care whether you will have 2 modules or 50. It has to be simple, usable, and maintainable. Yep. This is so. So my take is because I don't see the benefits. So if you know my presentation, it's not like they have nothing to sell. It's just it works, and the opposite, I don't see, the benefit. And I just try, to challenge also the audience. And I never heard, anything which could be measured as a measurable benefit, except someone who like to, to tinkle with dependencies. Other story. What are the killer features of Jakarta EE 8? I think the major killer feature is this namespace, right? Big Bang namespacing, so we get a simplification.
Okay, so Jakarta EE 9.
Sorry, 9.
Yep.
8 we have already, right? 9.
Yep. Yeah, so getting back to that. So Jakarta EE 9, the big thing is the namespace change. Now, one of the things that we are doing, there is a new project out in Eclipse. It's called the Eclipse Transformer. It's not very, innovative there as far as the name, but this project can help runtimes and customers move from JavaX to the Jakarta namespace. Mm-hmm. So as an example, I know we're using it for Open Liberty, and I think Tommy Tribe is planning to use it. And what we are doing is we need, Liberty, WebSphere, we need to support the old namespace as well as the new namespace. So we're going to, and between Jakarta EE8 and Jakarta EE9, for 95% of the code, it's going to be exactly the same, just a different namespace. So we're using the transformer to allow us to use the same code base to support both Java X and Jakarta. So we're doing this as part of our build process so that we can have our Java X binaries, and then a transformer will give us our Jakarta binaries. And that's what we're doing for Open Liberty. And I know Tommy Tribe is doing the same thing.
So is it transforming at runtime, or is it transforming during the build process?
The way that we're using it right now is at build time for our application server.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, it could also be used for applications, which we have done as well. So like we took, the platform TCK. You're kind of familiar with that, Java EE platform TCK or Jakarta EE. And 40-some thousand tests.
This is test compatibility kit, right? TCK test compatibility kit.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And so we took that whole bucket and ran the transformer against it so that we would, we have a platform TCK team that is very active trying to get that whole platform TCK migrated over to the Jakarta namespace. But what we did from an Open Liberty perspective is we first took the existing one, ran the transformer against it so that we would have a version of the TCK that we could start experimenting with early before the updated version came from the Jakarta EE team.
Okay. Is the transformer a Maven plugin? What is it? Is it like API which can use?
Yeah, right now it's a standalone tool, and there's a Maven plugin. I think there's a Gradle plugin as well. And so you could use it for your applications as well. That's the idea. When I mentioned the TCK updates, and we're using it for our functional testing, we use that to do the transformer. So customers could also take their applications that are currently dependent on Java X and use the transformer to get it over to Jakarta.
It basically changes the imports, right? And packages.
Yes. Yep. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because I don't want everybody to be concerned that with Java EE, that the only way they're going to be able to take advantage of the new namespace, or I should have said Java X. So if you have applications that are using Java X and you want to move to Jakarta EE9, you don't have to go through and make all of your coding changes in order for the new Jakarta namespace. There will be tools available to help you do that. We're also talking with the IDE teams, trying to get them more involved so that they could help with the migration of source. So if you're doing these binary conversions and it's working for you, but then you want to start to take advantage of some of the new features, either in Java or Jakarta EE, then you'd probably want to update your source code kind of quickly. So those type of IDE updates to support the Jakarta namespace, we're talking with them to try to get them.
Yeah, IDE could be or are actually very important, because what I can imagine, if you have unit tests, you will have to transform the unit tests as well.
Yes.
But you will have, to maintain the unit test as well. So this is a little bit a problem. So I think in larger project, source code transformation is more important, because, if the external software providers build their stuff, they would like to have the new source code, a new branch, test it, and, give it to clients. And for some legacy or smaller projects, the bytecode transformation could be interesting. Cool. So we have Eclipse Transformer. I was not aware of it. But who contributed to it? You know it? Who started? Steve Milic from Payara, or who was the initiator?
No, it came from IBM.
From IBM, okay. From AlphaWorks, right?
Yeah. Well, do you know BJ Hargrave?
No.
You haven't talked with BJ? Okay. No. So he's been very active, like in the OSGI environment. And he was learning more about this Jakarta namespace change, and he said, I think we could do something here, to make this a little bit easier. And so he started to play with it, and we started to experiment with it with Open Liberty, and was looking pretty good. And so then we BJ and his team proposed it as a project at
cool.
Eclipse.
Because I remember that Steve Millich mentioned that he have also something working in the early days that he could transform, the stuff from Payara. So I thought he contributed the transformer, but nice. So this is one of the, it was always clear that the major feature would be the namespace change and the transformer. And for me, it is really a feature because it is like, clean cut. So even if we migrate to microservices from older projects, you can say, okay, whatever starts with Jakarta, it is the new stuff. And it is not as bad as it sounds, because what I never understood was the criticism on Twitter about the namespace changes, because we were compatible for 20 years. Or more than 20 years, yeah?
Right.
So, this isn't, after 20 years, I think it is allowed to have a breaking change. Right? If you think about this, this is, we are, if a project for 20 years, very successful project, Java EE was hugely successful. And after 20 years or even more, if you have one major breaking change, it's absolutely fair, I would say.
Yep. Yeah, and like you were saying, it's giving us a new beginning, a new platform to start with.
Yeah.
And now we can move forward with whatever changes we want to. If we had stuck with Java X, technically, first of all, Oracle would not have allowed us to stay with Java X.
Oracle lawyers, right? There were some legal.
Yep. Some, the legal people that you don't like to deal
exactly.
with. Yeah. So if we would have stayed in Java X and we would have been trying to update those APIs, then we would constantly be having to go back to Oracle to make sure that what we're doing is all consistent and okay with that, the old Java X namespace, the old Java X APIs. So by forcing this issue, it's better for us. It's giving us a new start, a new platform, and now we can move forward in whatever direction we need to as a community with this Jakarta namespace.
Yeah, and and because the compatibility is already broken, without the transformer, it is broken because the namespace will be different. We can also clean up some stuff later, not in Jakarta EE 9, so Jakarta EE 10. So
we are cleaning up some stuff with Jakarta EE 9. That's another piece.
Mm-hmm.
There were 4 APIs that were kind of deemed, we call them stable APIs in Jakarta EE 8. Mm-hmm. And it was JAX RPC, JAX R, the deployment API, and the management API.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Jakarta EE 9, all 4 of those are gone.
Okay.
They no longer exist. So they're not being moved over to the Jakarta namespace.
From my perspective, SOAP is also very stable.
It is. So what we did with that one, so you know this, but for the rest of the people on the call, there were several technologies that years ago were part of J2EE.
Mm-hmm.
Then they kind of moved into Java SE because they're supposed to be ubiquitous and everybody was going to be using them. And then it got to the point when, with OpenJDK and moving forward with their faster releases, the Java SE team said, these things don't belong here anymore, so we're going to drop them.
Mm-hmm.
So SOAP was one, anything related to web services, the XML web services, JAX-B, activation, all of those were dropped from Java SE, and we picked them up for Jakarta. Mm-hmm. But just so that we don't lower or we don't raise the bar for new implementers, those XML related or XML web service related technologies, they are being listed as optional.
Mm-hmm.
So there's enough usage that they needed to be moved over, but they're not a required implementation.
Very good. I was not aware of. I proposed it several times at the mailing list, and I got lots of heat. No, SOAP is absolutely mandatory stuff. So I was really amazed. So how passionate people were about SOAP. I know that SOAP is still used, but in my opinion, I never saw greenfield microservice project with SOAP anymore.
No.
I mean,
No,
this is what this is
so.
we are moving forward. So no one will force someone with Jakarta E9 to use SOAP. I mean, exactly, perfect. So this is actually great news, and I mean, then there is a lot, right? So we get a clean namespace, we get the transformer not as a part but as a feature, and everything XML related becomes optional.
Yeah, basically.
By the way, do you remember around 2006 there was a huge discussion in Java community that Java will die because Scala has built-in support for XML? Yep. And there was huge pressure on Sun why they don't provide native XML support in Java. I also never understood this, why you need XML support. They had something like XML builders or something, Scala, I forgot about that. And I'm really curious right now if someone uses Scala, whether they really have or really using these XML features as well. So this was crazy times.
I don't know.
These were crazy requirements back then, but this I really remember because okay. Last question. From my perspective, one of the topics is the microservice, yes or no. What I see myself is more and more. I never was always pro microservices, but there's a trend, to have monolith again, and which is a very good thing. And people recognize also that Java is actually fairly small. So the whole discussion about bloated or not bloated, I think it is no more. Also, I don't see a lot of stuff like this. And do you see a trend among your clients or customers that they also that the microservice becoming larger? They still call them microservice, but they are no more than micro?
Yeah. The other thing though that we kind of found, I mean, when IBM, when we talked to our customers from way back when, even when microservices, was the hottest topic, we talked with them and said, okay, that doesn't mean that you have to change all of your monoliths.
Yeah.
I mean, there still is a time and place for the monoliths. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to move to that new environment, but it kind of depends on the application, the environment, are you still on premise versus the cloud? Different factors that come into play for the different, application architectures. So it doesn't surprise me that the microservices movement has slowed down.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
At the beginning, it was absolutely crazy. What I remember at the beginning of microservices, there were discussion how many lines of code a microservice can have. There was, this was crazy. So there's like the Unix pipeline, the pipe, the Unix pipes. Okay.
Yep.
This will never fly because we had probably the experience from the Corba days where everyone try to distribute methods around the network. It is also too fine-grained because at one point of time you will not know what's out there. It's really hard to keep everything consistent. I mean, not consistent from the consistency perspective, rather than from the how to call it, from the business perspective, to know how the microservices communicate with each other. And if you have everything in one bucket, it is easier to debug, to find out what this thing actually is doing. And the same mess was with JMS, and this was actually what I remember. It was around 2003. JMS was a thing, and IBM, the German IBM guys, were really, evil, because what they did is they tried to push JMS, and architects like that. But the problem is, if you have a synchronous architecture and you introduce JMS everywhere, this is really a mess, because you're sending a message, you have to wait for the response, and nothing was typed anymore because there were lots of casting and class cast exceptions, and this was a project was really hard to maintain. And the microservice was very similar to the architecture. Then the same happened with SOAP and asynchronous messages, and then if you try to send via SOAP, asynchronous messages was really hard to maintain, and then microservices came up. It was actually the same stuff with REST. First without messages and then with messages, but I mean, you have the same problems. Everything's a little bit easier, but the same challenges. So, You mentioned cloud, and I also see in clouds, even in particular in clouds, if you have many microservices, then the next question is, do we need Istio or whatever? But if you have larger microservices, then this is easier. So if you have 5 microservices, you probably for your application you don't need an Istio, So you could use Istio for different purposes, SSL certificate distribution, whatever. So for good stuff, but not necessarily for traffic management if you have not too many microservices. Yep. So so this is what I think. So in the next year, what we will see probably added push towards Jakarta EE, because it is a really added value. You have a small runtime, let's call it not a server, runtime, which provides you all the APIs, and you can build a larger microservice with it, or a really thin monolith, and then you are done. And then you can decide, whether you would like to split them apart or not. So I think this is an interesting time, because so many projects are burned by the microservices. In one project, favorite story, 100 microservices, 5 developers, and they ask me, how to start them. It's like, why you build so many? They say, okay, because we are building microservices, so we have to have as many as possible. And this is just observation. I just wanted to ask you, what's your observation here? Mm-hmm. Are you a little bit involved with MicroProfile as well?
Yes.
And SmallRye a bit?
Well, we're getting more involved with SmallRye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, SmallRye is becoming like the common implementation repository for MicroProfile.
It always was, right? For me, it's like a polyfill.
It was, but it was really, maybe I'm going to step on someone's toes here, but it was really Red Hat's implementation.
Okay.
There wasn't as much camaraderie among the other participants, and now it's becoming that.
Okay.
So there's more people involved with SmallRye now,
mm-hmm.
so it's not just a Red Hat initiative. So
mm-hmm.
I think that's better, to have a common implementation that you can kind of feed off of. And now, not everybody is using the contents of SmallRye, but at least it's a proving ground so that we can prove that the specifications can be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And we can get them out for use.
This is funny, because you mentioned SmallRye is from Red Hat, because Whitefly was not really MicroProfile compatible for a long time. And what I always did, I picked SmallRye to patch Whitefly to get the MicroProfile goodness inside Whitefly. Okay. And my clients ask me, but what is the SmallRye? Who built the SmallRye? Is a little bit dangerous now to build Red Hat. They say, why they build SmallRye and the Whitefly does not support MicroProfile? It's like, I have no idea why, but this is like it is. It's even the same developers. And then I was allowed to patch Whitefly with SmallRye, which was funny. It always worked, of course. We picked Matrix, and at the beginning, it was 2 years ago or 1 year ago. So funny story. But SmallRye can do more than MicroProfile. For instance, it comes with this reactive messaging.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
But this is not an official part of MicroProfile, right?
Not yet. Yet.
And what happens there? Because it's one of the common questions when it becomes a part of the MicroProfile. I can use it right now, but somehow unofficially,
Well, no, officially you can, because there is a separate specification for reactive.
Yeah.
We just have not merged it in with the MicroProfile platform yet. And that was a conscious decision that we decided that, okay, we had this base of MicroProfile,
mm-hmm.
and it had, a certain content for it. And then these new specifications were coming up, and it's like, okay, how do we decide when it's time that they're part of the platform?
Exactly.
And so what we kind of determined is it needs to, I don't know if establish is the right term, but to kind of, let's prove it a little bit. So let's
mm-hmm.
get it out into the environment,
mm-hmm.
Let people experiment with it, get feedback, and try to see if there's an interest in making it part of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the state that is in. You mentioned GraphQL earlier.
Yeah.
They're in the same boat.
Yeah.
So it's a separate specification in MicroProfile. And as we get feedback and interest, and if there's enough interest, then maybe that would become part of the platform.
Yeah, and GraphQL.
That's the idea.
Yeah. And GraphQL is a typical MicroProfile stuff, I would say, because it's also an external specification which started outside Java, right? So the whole idea came from JavaScript.
Correct.
And now if it changes, you will have to adapt to it, and it will affect the release cycle of MicroProfile, not Jakarta EE. So another story. Which innovation, innovation happens elsewhere, right? So this is.
Yep. Yep.
Very good. So, in one point of time, we get the let's say Kafka integration. This is what people are interested in, and Pulsar integration into MicroProfile. And one stabilization could be if it is implemented by more than 3 runtimes or 2 runtimes, then it could become part of MicroProfile, right? Because it has to be stable by nature, because if you have 3 vendors agreed to use that, it cannot change too much, I would say. This could be an indicator. Right. Otherwise, you will... And you know the plans when it could become, a part of MicroProfile?
I don't. I know our big push right now is just to get to MicroProfile 4.0.
Okay.
Because we want to move to the Jakarta EE. And so that's the big push there. And then I don't know the exact plans, but maybe Reactive would be looking at coming in after that.
So the MicroProfile 4.0 will use Jakarta EE with the new namespace, right?
No, this is just to get to Jakarta EE8.
Oh, okay.
Just so that we would be pulling in the open source from Jakarta.
Okay.
So now, depending on when we get Jakarta EE9 available and the timing of the MicroProfile releases, then we have to figure out, okay, when do we move to the Jakarta namespace?
Okay.
And I would, once we make the move to Jakarta, then to the Jakarta EE, then moving to the Jakarta namespace should come relatively easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Do you have any other topics you would like to discuss with me, or?
No, other than I'm wondering what the building is behind you.
This is the airport Munich. But my clients, or my clients, our listeners won't see this because it's audio only.
Oh,
but this is usually on the other side of the building. You see behind the other building is actually a hotel, is the Hilton, and this is not on the screen. And on the left side would be the conference center where the usual air hacks take place. Right now, because of the pandemic, no more. This is online. But in one point in time, we can restart it because it's always a nice experience. So we had attendees from all over the world. I tried to do it German only first, but it never was the case. So I always got attendees. And the last time we got from Africa, he traveled, 24 hours by airplane, crazy stuff. Just to see, Java EE and MicroProfile. This is the crazy stuff.
Yep. Okay.
Perfect.
But no, I don't have anything else. Good questions.
Perfect. Now I just want to sync up with you because it's really hard via email. I had the conversation already with I think John. If via email you cannot just ask such questions because usually you can frame it in a little bit strange and other people get angry or whatever. And if you see someone face to face, you can ask whatever you like because you can adapt to the reaction.
Yep.
So then, thank you. I would like to invite you back in a few months. Jakarta EE9 timeframe or whatever, just to discuss the progress. And I can tell you huge interest from my clients, both Jakarta EE and MicroProfile. And my clients don't take it too seriously. So the first they say, what is MicroProfile? And if you explain what it is, everyone is fine with the separation, and this is clear.
Good.
Because it's logical. Jakarta EE, Java stuff, MicroProfile, the cloud stuff, and perfect.
Okay.
So
Good
thank
enough.
you.
Good to know. Okay. Nice talking to you, Ed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.